we have the pleasure tonight to have Julie and Konstantinos from Exonera, and at the back
And
at the very
Codica.
end is Mike.
And Codica.
And Codica.
Yeah.
And Codica, sorry. And at the back there we have Mike. He's supporting the team to make sure that everything's going well. So I know Julie for a while now, quite a few years ago, and we met under a little project we did in Monotype. Julie's background is in marketing, but she is running a number of design teams. So I'm sure that you will talk about your background more here.
Yeah.
And Konstantinos is a designer, an entrepreneur, and he will talk a bit more about his background as well. So thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
thank
the
you.
stage is yours.
Great. Yeah. Hello, Oop, there you go. First of all, fall over the chair. Hi, everybody. It's really nice to be here. Thank you for coming along to see us tonight. As Anastasia said, I'm Julie Strawson, and I'm the founder of a brand new company called Exonera, which is all about unburdening people, not just end users and customers, but unburdening workers as well from poor experiences generally. And we're trying to change the way that marketing works by bringing design right at the centre of what we do and meshing that with technology for today's world. So that's really what I'm going to talk to you about tonight, is how to do more inclusive design inclusivity. It's so important because it can change lives. So without further ado, you'll probably see on Glisser, if you're following the poll, that I've asked what your main occupation is, and if you could give me some feedback on that would be great, because I like to know who I've got in the room, who I'm speaking to. So moving on, as Anastasia said, I've been working in the design industry at Monotype for a long time, about 13 years, and previous to that I worked in technology companies, designing products and services. And what I've learned from all of this really is that back in 2011, around that time, design became broken, and we set up in Monotype a movement, a community called Brand Perfect. And Konstantinos is here tonight to help design this whole project at the time. That's why we've stayed in touch and we get along so well. We think very similarly about the way that technology, design and strategy should come together and be cross-disciplinary now, not separate functions. The single biggest takeaway of the Brand Perfect project was that the customer needed to be at the centre of every process now. We are now in a digital society, aren't we? You can't live without your gadgets and the internet. So we need to think about more than just a website these days, or the basics around a digital experience. We need to think about the entire end-to-end process that the customer's going through, and particularly where brands are concerned, how the inside of the organisation works, as well as the external customer-facing side. So in digital, delivering experiences is really what counts, and converting those to value in some way is now the focus. So just coming on to how we do that, and I wanted to share a story here just to help you think a little bit about what people are up against today, especially, I'm not saying people that don't use computers a lot. The world is bigger than just the enfranchised digital world. And this lady, Dr. Sue Kroger, who is Director of Disability Resources at the University of Arizona, has a really interesting story to tell, and it's quite fun too, so please indulge me and I'll just share it with you. When Apple says I can. Go. Why like that? Okay. Maybe it's the internet.
Aggravating, and I thought I'd share it with you. When we landed in London, and the airline was British Airlines, or Airways. Is it British Airways? British Airways? And that's really not relevant. This could have been any airline, I promise. So I don't want you to think I'm picking on the Brits. But we landed after 10 hours in this plane. And actually, I had never moved. It was so tight. I don't think, Kevin, I don't think you got up either. 10 hours, we hadn't moved. And so we got pulled in, and we waited, and we waited. Everybody's standing up, can't wait to get out. We waited, and we waited. I've got a good 10 minutes, and then they came on and said, we're having some issues with the jetway. It won't seem to connect to the airplane. And so everybody went, oh, yeah, right, you know, and so we waited a little more. And finally, 10 more minutes went by, and they said, it appears that we are not going to be able to fix it. So hold on, we're going to get the stairs. So we waited another 10 minutes, and then it was time for the stairs. So everybody's up, and I can use crutches. So I have crutches that I use. I'm not a very good walker anymore, but I can navigate a bit. So I was walking on my crutches out of the plane, and I was concerned about my chair, because whenever the routine changes, you never know where that chair is going to end up. And so as I was walking out of the plane, I said to the first flight attendant, I'm concerned about where my chair is going to be. Oh, don't worry, the chair will be at the bottom of the stairs. You can manage the stairs okay, right? And I typically don't even answer those questions. Kevin does, because I pretend I don't hear them. So I kept going, and then I got to the next flight attendant, and I said, I'm a little concerned about my chair. And she said, oh, we have it. It will meet you at the bottom of the stairs. The stairs are okay, right? And I said, we're going to make it work. So the stairs are, this is a big plane, so the stairs are a lot of stairs, and they're steep. And I'm kind of starting to navigate down, and all of a sudden the flight attendant comes running down in front of me and gets right in front of me. She said, I just got to help. And Kevin, again, says, oh, it's better to not help her. So I kept kind of maneuvering down the steps, and we got to the bottom of the steps. I know this story is going on too long, but it's an important story. So I got to the bottom of the steps, and I said, I'm concerned about my chair. My chair wasn't there. Oh! And a man comes running, and he said, oh, your chair is up there. And that was sort of like, you get down these steps, and then you go up the steps of the jetway, and your chair will be up there. And I said, I got down, but I know I can't get up those stairs. I just knew I wouldn't be able to. Oh, well, that's okay. Follow me, and we'll get your chair. And so we followed him under the plane and to this little vehicle, and there's a lift on the back. And he puts me on that lift, and we ride up, and then I walk into this vehicle, and it's very nice. And oh, I forgot to tell you, it's blowing like 60 miles an hour on the tarmac. Could hardly stay upright. And we get into this little vehicle, and it's really warm, and there's seats, and so we kind of sit down, and then they bring my chair, right? This is after now I'm in. And they bring the chair, and they're trying to get it into this little door, right? So he's lifting it up real high, and the chair, the brakes not on, so it's falling over, and the other guy's trying to get it in, and then they pull it in through this little door, right? So then I'm finally with my chair, and we're sitting there, and this vehicle goes up, so it raises up, and it moves forward, I don't know, maybe 10 feet, and connects to the other side of the airplane, where they bring in the food and stuff on the other side of the galley. Moves in, connects there, a door opens, and these two lovely elderly people just walk in. and I'll bet they're first class.
Right, so I'm going to stop it there. Yeah, I know that you're all involved in digital design, and this is not, probably you're thinking, this has nothing to do with digital design, but actually it could be, okay? What I'd like you to all think about is how in your digital, brains, or where you're thinking digitally, how could you have helped her? How could you have helped her? And today, I know you're all involved, you're probably all doing this all the time. We're just filling in forms, aren't we, every minute on the internet, giving data away on the internet. What are those organisations doing with our data? Because I don't know about you, but every time I've flown with an airline, I've given my mobile phone and various other information about myself, but they've never seemed to have used it to help me, right? So I was just thinking here about, we need to start thinking about more than just using the web as a sales device, and more as a tool to help people have great customer experiences and go on a journey with a brand that is, great, that's a positive one, that actually is benefiting both the customer, of course, as the first priority, but also the brand. The brand is, going to benefit from customer loyalty in that way. So are you asking the right questions if you're gathering data as well? I know, probably a lot of your designs already, you're being taught to focus on gathering data and using data at the heart of your design, but what questions are you asking people? And, what's to stop? And, you sending Sue, once she's booked in on her journey, a flight, on her flight, an app, with her user profile in there, that would help her understand where her chair will be in the event of an emergency, etc., or, all these anxieties that people have every day, can be dealt with digitally. So I'm just sort of hoping that one of the things you might take away tonight is that, to think a little bit more broadly about people as individuals, and that's the point of design inclusivity. So I'm just going to get back to the presentation. And I have a love of typography, which is why I spent 13 years at Monotype. And after spending a lot of time in tech companies that were pretty product-centric, not really people-focused organisations, I'd finally discovered a product that was design inclusive in type. I'm sure all of you, who likes type in the room? Anybody like it? Please, a few people. Yeah, I'm sure as designers you love playing around with typefaces. And, you've probably always thought, why are there so many of them? Well, there are so many of them because each one of us likes different things, don't we? We all love a different, way of dressing, different things to eat. And that's what fonts are about. They're painstakingly designed to appeal to everyone and to also be useful to everyone, including people that think differently and learn differently. So again, a couple of examples here of design inclusive fonts for dyslexic people and children as well. And type is only just one design component. I mean, Konstantinos is going to talk a little bit about service design, and you'll see, it's just so much more. There's so much to just designing a simple font, and yet when you get into service design, the devil is in the detail. So at this point on your poll, you might have a question to answer. So please tell me if you've taken it, what you've taken away from the first section of the talk. I want to talk now about difference being a strength. And as I've just said, I think everybody appreciates we're all different. So designing in a standard way, with standard apps, your sort of benchmark, I won't name any names, but the benchmark design apps out there, is that constraining you? Have a think about that. Is that controlling the way you're designing and thinking even to, do things that you can do within that framework? It's, I advocate that, maybe looking at things the other way around might help you be more successful with users. So And you know, we're now in a consciously diverse world, aren't we? You know, which is great news. We're all aware of the differences we all have. Deloitte's Human Capital survey this year reported that CEOs, 38% actually, more CEOs this year, are committed to a diverse workforce, which means that people are going to need tools and services and products that they can access. So accessibility is going to become more and more important. And diversity, well, diversity we all know is age, sex, ethnicity, etc. But there are so many influences affecting each one of us every day, you know, whether we're married, what our religion is, you know, where we live, what our education is, all of these influences. So for someone to tell you, oh, here's a web kit, you know, designed with this standard kit, yeah, is that really going to work for people? I think, you know, it's a very simplistic approach to design. And there's a new term around. Has anybody heard of neurodiversity in the room? Heather's not allowed to answer this. So I've got a friend, colleague from Synchrony who we're going to hear about in a moment here. But neurodiversity is an approach to be supportive and to enable people who think differently. So that means that people with ADHD, for example, and on the autism spectrum, you know, people that at the moment have a hard time finding a place in the workforce, are now, you know, positively able to be supported. And we're more than ever aware of the great contributions that a neurodiverse workforce brings. Here are two examples of people with what we call neurodiverse mindsets. So, you know, David Neeleman of JetBlue Airways has an ADD brain, and yet he's able to think outside the box because of that very reason. Richard Branson is a dyslexic. He has an amazing imagination. So, you know, we need to embrace everyone in our workforce, and we need to include those in our teams too. Having a diverse design team is just as important to enable you to design for everyone. So this is just going into a little bit more information for you on how you could think about designing for people who think differently. So people with autism have enhanced perceptual functioning. So they like focusing on small details, and they like doing things like debugging software for that reason, and, you know, repetitive tasks within systems. So having a systemic approach in the user experience you design for them is a good way forward. And then people with ADD love frequent changes. They get bored easily. They want, you know, novelty, and they get easily distracted too. So, but they love a puzzle. So you can imagine how you could apply this in games and apps and things. And then people with dyslexia like to use their imagination, as I've said, and prefer imagery over text for obvious reasons. So, you know, just trying to think about all this information we're collecting every day about people. If we ask the right questions and we learn more about how people like to work and play as well, then we could actually serve up one day. My vision is to be able to serve up, you know, a personalised user interface for that person. Wow, wouldn't that be great? How do we design a process for this? Well, it's really easy, because the special educational needs process, in my opinion, humble opinion, is very similar to a design process. You know, you assess everyone, you do your research, find out what their needs are, and as you can see here in education, the design of the way that information is presented is already critical. So looking at fonts, looking at text sizes, looking at colour, looking at assistive technology as well. And if people can't see very well, speech recognition is amazing now. It's really, really useful. And this kind of process, I think you'll agree, could work in design. You know, you have your plan, you then carry it out, and then you review and get feedback from your customer. So I think, again, it's very challenging, I know, as a designer. You sort of become, you have all these great ideas, and then you walk into a room with a lot of business people who've got so much money to make them all happen. And you've also got technologists or developers who have a constrained technology platform to work with. And you can come out sometimes feeling a little bit down about things because your big idea is just not able to be implemented all the time. But if you put the customer at the centre of it, most business people will jump on it and support you because they just want customers to be happy because they know that customers bring value to their organisation. So if you're not already working, when you do get out there and you're working in business, that is something important to do, is to embrace the whole team in your idea, not just try and go it alone. So bring in all the interdisciplinary teams in the organisation to back you, get buy-in. Just a couple more things on the way people think. So I went to see Exeter House School, which is a wonderful facility for basically children who think differently, is how I'm going to put it. And a lot of the children that do not have very good cognitive functioning, and they don't, or they may not be able to speak very well, they use pictorial language. And if you think back to the ancient Egyptians, that's where they started too, wasn't it? So what's wrong with making things simple? They are actually, every day they come in and they put in their own little menu of what they want to do each day, like this. They also choose what they're going to have for their lunch that way as well. So it gets a bit messy, the book, because it goes in the dining room. But that's the way they just grab a picture and go. And Josh, the teacher there, was telling me that they love their gadgets. They love iPads, they love their phones, like all kids do. But it's really challenging for them to use some of the apps and the games and things because they're just designed so tiny and fiddly, and there's text, lots of text to deal with on buttons. So just thinking a bit more about how simple we can make things. Try and go back to simple practice. And when you're looking at justifying why you should have something that's simple, the purple pound, which is sort of I hate to say the word, but disabled pound, is worth now $200 billion in the market. So it's a business out there that is a massive opportunity to organisations who currently are over 90% non-compliant on accessibility worldwide. So just have a think about that. If you can bring that audience in, that's a massive opportunity. And I just wanted to sort of, before I go on to the next section, I think there's some questions again for you. But it just comes back to this point that in a digital society, we have to design for individuals, because these kids who've got this amazing support now, unfortunately there aren't enough schools like Exeter House in the UK, but they're getting amazing education and support. But what happens to them when they leave school? How are they going to be able to manage in the world of work if every website they try and use, or every app they try and use, or every experience they have on the internet, or otherwise actually, is not, it is just unmanageable. So I think we have a duty to support them anyway. Okay, so I'm on to our first example tonight. It's a case study of design inclusivity, and we're taking a look at a very new company. Actually, it's a world first for you, and I've got Heather Longworth from Synchrony here tonight. She's the COO of Synchrony. Synchrony is a startup which they're a platform developer, and they are among the first in the world to do, well, they're the first in the world to do this. So I'm just going to talk to you about how they designed their platform. So within the Designscape, as I call it, digital is driving our daily lives, isn't it? I think you'll agree with that. And there's just some stats here for you. I found that over 75% of people in the UK have more than 3 devices that they use regularly every day. And, it's that's across all I guess, groups, so all the whole population, and each and every one of us, has specific influences, driving our behaviour, that not only depends on our context, but also our personality and learning ability, doesn't it? So I'm just putting together what I've said really in the last 2 sections, and it's not just about the technology. The technology shouldn't be driving us. We should be driving the technology. We're deemed to be living in the 4th technology revolution now, but it's still to prove itself. And I think that's because the potential of these devices to enhance our lives is still being limited by a standard approach to user interface design, as I've said. So that's just really my preamble to tell you about Synchrony. Because Carl Soames discovered this. Carl is the founder, CEO of Synchrony. When his nephew, Jonathan's school, was unable to support his needs and he had to learn at home. And I think that's something a lot of children struggle with. And like most of us, Jonathan loved using his iPad and his phone, but support on existing learning platforms was designed for a laptop first. So he found that a very static and, as I've just explained, with some conditions, a static learning environment, so it was difficult for him to concentrate. Carl worked with special needs teacher Heather Longworth and web applications developer Roy Goddard to create an online learning environment that would work seamlessly for Jonathan using the phone, tablet and laptop that he had at home. So they just sat down and got an idea as to how Jonathan thought and how he worked. And they brought in, if you notice, you had Carl, who's kind of, he's a technology expert and he's a strategist. You had Heather, who's a special needs expert and a teacher. And then you had Roy, who's a developer, all working together on figuring out the best way to approach this for Jonathan. And by understanding how Jonathan worked, they created a naturally intuitive and flexible user experience that was synchronized across each device. So I don't know if you've tried to do that, but it's very hard to try and get all your apps running at the same time on one device and to try and bring in the tools you want to use onto different devices. And, Carl's nephews, of course, not alone. I mean, this is an example of how they started their research process. But they also went out and did further sort of exercises like this and spoke to lots of people and found that James Marsalek, I don't know if you've heard of him, he's a champion British junior tennis player. And his family is very challenged because James is on the road all the time, trying to train and play tennis. He can't get enough time at school, so he's having to learn remotely a lot of the time. His brother's really sick, so he has to learn at home, and his mother's in the middle trying to deal with all of this. And you and I think we've all said this, haven't we? We're just fed up with learning how to use Glisser, apps and platforms and software. I just want to be able to get on with what I have to do, whether it's work or whatever it is. Every time you open up an app or look at something online these days, you've got to register and you've got to put passwords in and you've got to spend ages learning it. So it's all about thinking about, instead of forcing people to learn what you want to teach them, let's learn how people work, play and so on and design for that. And we also, we all have different needs, don't we? We all have different priorities. And business people too can benefit hugely from, small businesses are so important to the economy now. It's very expensive to be able to travel around all over the place and work, just to collaborate. If you could collaborate in a much more enriched way online, wouldn't that be amazing? And if you could do everything you could do in a meeting and have, a very live experience, if you like, at your desk, then you wouldn't bother getting on a plane and going miles to a conference like poor Sue had to, would you? Especially if you could hardly walk. And there's also the ecological benefit of doing that and avoiding burning fossil fuels, of course. So digital could be so powerful if we think outside the box and think about these big world problems. Instead of rethinking things, therefore, coming back to Synchrony and forcing us to learn all over again, Synchrony understands that we all want to use our own devices, software and content. So we want to bring all this together regardless of the brand of the device we've got. And what they are trying to do is to build a platform that employs the strengths of the devices we already own in the way we are used to using them. And the platform promises to enable people to push content and applications seamlessly from device to device. And it even gives you multi-camera angles. So, using the cameras on your devices, you could set up multi-camera angles to actually give you an in-room experience so that you're much more engaged. So any live experience can become simpler and more collaborative. But more importantly, it will advance global education by offering an immersive digital learning experience on mobile devices to either complement or substitute existing teaching methods. So there are lots and lots of applications for this. Beyond obviously education is very important, and you consider where the world is today. We've got refugees all over the place. We have people displaced, all over the Middle East. What's happening to those poor children? How are they supposed to get an education? Well, can you imagine how amazing it would be if they could use, the device they've got, one mobile phone, and just have enough capability on that to attend lessons and, become re-enfranchised, basically. So thinking inclusively again about people in situations, real-world situations, rather than a standard approach. Live experiences become, they become accessible to everyone too. At the moment, I know, everything's exploding in social media. You've got live this, live that going on, but it's just a bit of a one-way street, isn't it? I mean, you can probably have a chat, but that's probably it. What about if you could collaborate with people at the event? You could choose the feeds you view, you could share yours with theirs, you could pretty much be there without having to be there and take part. Well, that's something Synchrony wants to build. I'm sort of so hopeful that they get the backing that they're looking for, because this could really change the way that we work, live and play. And it's an entirely inclusive way of looking at a platform. It's not a closed proprietary world anymore. It's a world of people first, I think. That's how I would put it. What about the man v machine? Is anybody in the room, as a lot of young people here tonight, are you concerned about your futures? Are you concerned about having jobs to go to? Yeah? Well, I think this is a really interesting quote from Andrew McAfee, who is a technologist, I grant you. He's going to be positive. But I wouldn't be worried. I think that there is a study, it's just come in again from Deloitte, the human capital survey that I mentioned earlier, that says that although 50% of people believe their companies are going to be fully automated within 5 years, the majority believe that won't result in them losing their jobs. It will actually result in the re-engineering of work. And, oh, what's happened there? Oh, I've run out of... Somebody unplugged my Mac for me. Oh, that was nice. Sorry, everyone. So it's coming up. But I think you got the gist of it. He was talking about these... technology today is just like when the steam engine replaced human muscle power years ago and took the drudgery out of our work. So what I'm hoping will happen is that we won't have to worry about, using boring design apps anymore. We'll have some amazing tools and much more useful data to go out and solve all these problems that we've got in the world and create a much better life for everybody. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. But if you have any questions now, happy to take a few. Anybody have any? Michael? Are there any? No? If you have any questions for Heather from Synchrony about the platform that I was talking about, then no?
I wonder about,
Yeah?
the benefits of live show. What's the benefit from that?
It would initially, well, two sides. Event marketing companies, for instance, can run competitions in event competitions. So let's say anyone who finds the Red Bull logo in your feed, in your live stream, first one up, you won this prize or whatever. But for everyone who's participated, they are able to make money or gain audience from the quality of their video. And also teaching us who can't attend are getting a choice of different streams to view. So there's that when we're going on, we get someone filming a barbecue versus that stage or that building.
Okay, yeah.
I thought as well, Heather, that, you know, people who are... I had this kind of dream to run a festival one day, and I tried to do it recently, and it's not off the ground yet. But what we learned was that using some amazing technology, I don't know if you've heard of Screen It. It's a new collaborative. It's not Synchrony, but it's just a video app that enables people like, you know, on the border in refugee camps could actually be at a festival with you and be entertained. So where people that can't afford to go, you know, I mean, they're expensive, aren't they, festivals? So trying to join in with things, giving people the chance to take part and participate, you know, without necessarily costing a fortune, you know, that's the idea. And Synchrony, I loved working with Synchrony on their brand, because the principle I loved about it was that they don't require you to buy any special software or equipment. You use your own gadgets that you've got right now, you know. So they've done the thinking around that for you. So, you know, it's about, yeah, I think it's good. So anyway, thank you very much for your attention. I'm going to hand over to Konstantinos now, who's a designer who will be relieved to know, and hopefully he'll answer lots of questions.
Thanks, Julie. Really inspiring stuff. Well, hi, everybody. Can I have the mic, please?
Yes, you can have the mic. I just thought, there you go.
Thank you very much. A minute. So, is this good? Yeah. So, my name is Kon. I'm the founder and director of a small digital studio called Codica. And in a nutshell, what we do is basically we deliver product-based innovation on the fast track. Now, what that means, we'll go in a bit more detail in a few minutes. Today, I want to talk about inclusivity and like 4 kind of key things. First, inclusivity itself. Second, inclusive experiences and how they enable design at scale. Third, how data is both a blessing and a curse. And finally, how we can deliver change at scale. It would help to have a clicker, but... So first, inclusivity. Inclusivity, to me, is all about accommodating viewpoints and needs that are away from your kind of zone of perception. So it's about kind of understanding the other. It's about empathizing and about including people in the process in your thinking process. Have you ever, you know, in a busy street, on a busy station, have you ever taken a step back, you know, like cheesy video clips, like that kind of stuff that you see, and just watch the people? Have you ever done that? It's, I mean, yeah, we live in a very kind of a rushed world, but sometimes, you know, if you do that, you know, there's something really powerful, because you take a step back, you think about what you're doing and how those people would actually understand that, or even how they would benefit from that. And you look at each individual person, and you try to understand who they are, what they do, what they're trying to achieve, and all those things. And it's really powerful. So sometimes we need to take a step back. We need to, when you create something powerful, you need to empathize with people, and you need to rely a lot more on what you don't know than what you do. And of course, get out of your comfort zone, challenge your assumptions, and be humble. As designers, we tend to have quite an attitude, because what we're doing now is very powerful, right? I mean, design is getting a seat at the table now. At C-level, you know, all like large corporations are acquiring, gobbling up design agencies, and design has a say on what's going on. So, and the way things are happening now, you know, like technology is kind of trickling down to every industry, transforming everything, and it's down to us designers to make sense of that, right? So it's really important for us to stay humble and brave at the same time, you know, like pushing ourselves out of a comfort zone and starting, you know, getting in the shoes of the people that we're designing for. And that does not only make the products that we work with, that we're working on better, it makes us better designers and better people, most importantly. So inclusive experiences are all about onboarding the user onto your process and including them at every step. So the user is not just your subject, a faceless subject that you're creating something for. It's a real person, you know. And the more you get to spend time with them, the more you kind of get to onboard them, and you map out their journeys together, and you co-create, and you come up with solutions together. The more you learn about them, and the more beneficial it is for both the user and yourselves as designers. And to me, inclusivity, you know, is very well kind of represented by communicating vessels, where when you create something, a digital product, typically the most savvy will benefit the most, while other groups with a much kind of lower digital capability will not benefit as much or at all. So inclusivity is all about kind of equalizing that, right? And inclusivity is key and very important at creating and delivering design at scale. And that's most evident, you know, at government level. That's where stuff gets real. And I don't know if you've seen, like, the government has a bunch of services under gov.uk, and they have defined a 17-point standard on how these services should work. This is called digital by default. And 4 kind of key points that I believe that are quite relevant and they have to do with inclusivity are: first, understanding the user's needs, creating multidisciplinary teams, small, like tightly integrated teams, iterating and improving frequently your product, and encouraging people to use digital channels. I've been fortunate to be involved in a number of projects that with the government that were used by many people. The first one was this risk of serious recidivism and serious harm assessment screener. This is a service, it's a tool basically, a screener tool that is being used by offender managers upon release. When an offender is about to be released from prison, they use this screening tool to give the statistical probability of them committing serious crime. So if they're high risk, they're assigned to the probation service. If not, to a community rehabilitation company. Now, 2 things happened with this project, and this was the first project that we were involved with government. So the first is that there was an incredibly fast kind of uptake, and it was taken off the ground at an incredible speed. And second, there was an incredible amount of collaboration and working with users, with the people that would actually use it as in their day-to-day job. And what made this happen is the process that we use, and I'm going to talk about shortly, about high-fidelity prototyping. So skipping up like lengthy kind of discovery process, going straight into creating an MVP. So what we did with this, we created straight away a minimum viable product. We got the stakeholders together, got a sign-off incredibly fast, because there is something really powerful. You know, when you show your users something that feels like real kind of and finished, they perceive it completely differently than static mock-ups or paper prototypes or dummy click-through prototypes. It's so much more powerful. And apart from that, you know, when you present to stakeholders, they don't have much kind of angle, you know, to rip it apart. So that kind of helped kind of accelerate the process of getting it signed off. The minister saw it and said, yes, I want this launched in a couple of weeks. I want news coverage. I want to be there and use it myself. So, and that kind of was launched at a record time. And on the back of that, we created a prototyping framework for the design teams at the MOJ. And typically, you know, even though they're using small kind of multidisciplinary teams, to put something on the browser, you know, to start from the idea, to create a design and put it on the browser, it required quite a lot of work. So what we did is that we scraped all those requirements. We created a static kind of version, like an HTML version that could stand alone, that would not require a browser, a server backend to work. And with some really kind of smart design, we created a way that by only using HTML markup, you could create advanced interactions. Now, all GovUK interfaces, if you see, they're all like forms, right? There's steps and forms with fields and progressive disclosures and all that kind of stuff. So we did all that. So in this tool, you can create as long or short forms as you want, as many steps you want. You can nest forms in each other. You can create progressive disclosures, tooltips, error messages, all those things. And the coolest thing about it is that designers can actually play with and change it over the course of a user testing session. So it incredibly accelerates the speed at which things are done. Finally, a couple of other things that the team has done at MOJ, and they were quite powerful, was the first, the digital deputyships service, where this is a service to help deputies make decisions for people who are unable making decisions, either people with severe learning disabilities, either people with brain damage or with dementia and things like that. And lastly, and probably the most powerful, is that kind of a prison visits booking. Basically, it does what it says on the tin, right? It's just it's just a kind of calendar app that you book a date, and you kind of book an appointment to go and see your relative, your loved one, whatever, who might be in prison. Now, to us, the way we see it, you know, it sounds like really trivial, right? You just fire it up, choose a date on the calendar, send it off you go. But before that, the process of doing that was horribly tedious. So it required you as a visitor to call up the prison, request a form, have the form posted to you, fill in the form, sign it, send it back to the prison, call up the prison, arrange the appointment. The prison would send a visiting order to you back. That would take 3 weeks, right? And so the most frequent you would be able to go and see your loved one in prison would be about like once a month at best, right? So can you guess what the time was to do all that with this? Less than 5 minutes. Less than 5 minutes. I mean, how powerful is that? Taking a ridiculously, horribly lengthy process like that and compressing it into something so easy. So the most important thing, though, that this kind of resulted to is that inmates in prisons, offenders, were getting a lot more visits by their families. You know, fathers could see their kids, kids could see their parents, wives could see their husbands, husbands could see their wives, and so on. So that dramatically reduced suicide rates within prisons. So how amazing is that, right? So this is just, you know, an example of a few things, you know, design at scale and like taking into account, you know, users' needs at different people at different times. And at the end of the day, you know, it's all about execution. All of that stuff is all about execution. And what I referred to previously is, I actually found this quote the other day by Steve Jobs, who says that ideas are nothing but a multiplier. It's the execution that is actually worth millions. And I couldn't agree more with that. So the way we do things, as I mentioned previously, it's quite different. At the bottom here, you see like the typical way that digital agencies work at the moment. They have this kind of lengthy uptake on projects with lengthy discovery phases, workshops, and kind of early design, sketching, wireframing, visual design, then throw designs over the wall to a development team and expect to build it. Several things break along the way. And when you get to a point where you can actually test this, test the real product and test the behavior of it, it's somewhere about around here, right? Between like when the first alpha ships, like at minimum 2 months, and let alone ship at about 6 or 7 months. What we do is completely the opposite. So our discovery is compressed literally like a few days. So we go in, we try to kind of encapsulate, understand the problem as much as possible, bring in insights, research, relevant research to give kind of a more context into what the problem is, and we start straight away with lo-fi mockups. No wires, no kind of lengthy kind of workshopping, sketching, and all that kind of stuff. We go straight into creating a first version. And we use, for that, we use mostly our insight and foresight, you know, how things work and how things kind of, what are the major trends, you know, what's kind of happening in the design industry right now, and what are, you know, the next technologies that are going to be used. So we kind of incorporate that into the first kind of the first version that we go straight into and start working on code. Then, of course, we don't do that as you know, aiming to deliver that as a final thing. It's just a good enough start point, okay? So we start from the good enough, we go into the MVP, and we start iterating relentlessly. And from a good enough, that allows you to go to great. So execution, iteration is what makes the good enough great. The old way of doing things is all kind of geared towards a V1.0 approach, where, you know, you start kind of with several kind of blind spots around you, and you start kind of gearing up without any room for iteration. And when you get to the point where you test those things and you test the actual behavior of the real product, it's really expensive to go back to the drawing board and change things. Actually, in what we do in most of the cases, what we end up with is completely different to what we started. So that's the beauty of iteration. And the core of iteration is, of course, the MVP. And what we do is basically, we call it design on code. Because most of us, the teams that we work with, we are both designers, but we've all kind of acquired some kind of technical and coding skills over the course of the years, because it helps so much. It kind of ups your game incredibly if you do that. So at the core of this is the MVP. All the work is being done there. We design on code. We iterate there. We get continuous feedback from the customer. And you know, you get like real data from the customers. You see what people actually use, and you can ask them contextually, does this make sense? Tap twice to see the previous version. You know, you do like A/B testing. You do all sorts of things on the real MVP. So it's an amazing way of working, and it's so groundbreaking compared to what is being done today. So where we are now is that we have this service layer sitting on top of every industry, every vertical, and it transforms everything. So this service layer trickles down into each industry and either augments, completely disrupts, or creates entirely new propositions in this industry, because it connects things that were not possible to connect before, right? And out of our experience and in the way that we work, we've found out that it's basically three things that you need to create pretty much any proposition in that service layer. The first is communications. The first is content, actually delivering content, gathering content, user-generated content, all that sorts of stuff. Second is communications, components that actually that facilitate and allow communication, whether that's video calling, voice calling, messaging, file sharing, all those sorts of things. And third, data. And that's really important. It's about integrating with all sorts of different data sets, integrating with sensors, with hardware, bringing everything together, processing it, making sense of it, and displaying it back. So these are like the three core components to build pretty much any proposition. And of course, it's all about teams. Like inclusivity in teams is the most important thing into making these things happen, okay? So as I said before, and as it's been kind of on the government's digital by default spec, it's all about creating kind of small kind of multidisciplinary teams involving different skills at every step of the way, because each kind of different perspective gives something different to the product. So I'm going to quickly kind of run through. I know it's late and we're all going to go to the pub, so I'm going to very, very quickly run through a couple of projects. I'm not going to go through everything. This is a really good example. It's called Co, and this was done for a Fortune 500 client, which I cannot mention, unfortunately. And the initial brief when we started working with this was that they wanted a playlist app to Chromecast. So just an app that you add stuff on a list and you push to Chromecast. And we took this on and we started working together. We started working with a team and bouncing off ideas and kind of sitting kind of next to each other, designer, developer, kind of exchanging ideas and brainstorming things. And the insight that that each one brings on board can trigger the imagination of the other. So, for example, what we ended up with this, which was the product of this process, that we tried to replicate, we managed to replicate the experience of actually, sitting next to someone and showing, pictures, an album of pictures, videos, things like that. So think of like, when you want to send some pictures to your mom or whatever, you send them via email or whatever. But when you actually show them in person, it's so much more powerful, right? So we replicated exactly that experience. So in that application, you can create posts, share them with someone, then arrange to either schedule a point in time to view them together, or straight away call them up and view them at the same time. And what happens there is really amazing. So you get in the call, and it kind of launches kind of the gallery view, and when anyone in that group kind of swipes or zooms or whatever, it does it for everybody. So it replicates the experience for everyone in the group. And that is so kind of profoundly cool, because technology has been built as a very kind of personal thing up until now, right? So technology is strictly personal. Personal computer, one mouse, one keyboard, one pointing device. Mobile phones, are extremely personal. So this kind of broke away of that kind of paradigm of personal technology, okay? And the result was indeed quite powerful. And of course, it's, again, to using the same analogies, helping the savvy bring on board the novice ones. Another one is a new publishing format we created for, again, a client I cannot, unfortunately, talk about. This is kind of in beta testing right now, where the client created, they had a service where it's like a utility kind of app where you collect content and organize it and kind of collaborate with others on that content. And we came on board at some point working on that stuff, and the idea kind of was thrown, like, what if we could kind of publish some of that? So, for example, you know, what happens when you organize a holiday, when you organize a trip somewhere? Where do you save all your research, all that stuff that you're collecting? Google Docs, Dropbox, right? Anything else? Like notes, that kind of stuff, right? So we thought, how cool would it be if Mike and Julie organized a trip to the Caribbean, and they could save somehow all that research they did, and my wife and I, you know, having a similar taste to them, would actually kind of benefit from the work that they did. So that's what this format is all about. It's about kind of putting together content in a very kind of beautiful, expressive, kind of responsive kind of a format that you can experience pretty much everywhere. So, and on top of that, actually now we're looking at making it audible as well. So integrating, saving to Alexa as well, so that, you know, even visually impaired or blind people, you won't need a screen to actually experience that, which is really, really good. And finally, I won't go into more projects. We were involved in with a fintech startup in an investment marketplace platform, and they had a product that was in place and it was heavily problematic, and it could not kind of extend. They could not add new features based on what their customers wanted. So we went in and literally with a team of 3, like, completely kind of different backgrounds, people from completely different backgrounds, we came up with a number of groundbreaking ideas and built a first kind of a prototype at a record time of like 6 or 7 weeks. And one of the best things that we actually managed to do is to leverage, you know, the communication paradigms like Slack and all those things, like a smart kind of chat interface, to create a state-of-the-art kind of activity feed where all the activity basically in the platform can run there. So you can have like highly contextual content at every kind of step of the way in whatever it is that you're doing. Either you're in a marketplace, you're in an investment kind of process, or all those things, and have everything kind of contextually presented to you in a kind of scalable format. So enough with projects. So all that is about kind of inclusivity and how inclusivity with, you know, getting user needs kind of drives design at scale, good design at scale. There's also data-driven design at scale, though, not focusing on the individual. It's where kind of the individuals become masses. And this is the mantra of the Lean Startup. Lean Startup, do you guys know what the Lean Startup is? Lean Startup is, you know, it's all the rage now. It's a set of tools and processes to quickly innovate, quickly kind of create and ship products and stuff like that. And it's all about building something very, very quickly, similar to what I said, building an MVP, and start kind of collecting data. So this is all about data collection and learning from that data. And which is great, but data obsession is not a great thing. Data, on the one hand, you know, it enables and drives insights, but on the other hand, you know, it can reduce your entire business and product strategy to a mere kind of KPI increase, which, you know, it kind of dries out completely the purpose of what you do. It can enable optimization, but we're getting to a point where there's a whole industry around optimization. Optimization is, don't get me wrong, you know, it's great, but it's the icing, not the cake. It's the means, it's not the purpose. And data, of course, creates context, allows highly personalized experiences, but allows for massive, massive exploitation and misinterpretation and misunderstanding of data. And of course, data delivers evidence. and yet we have alternative facts. And it's at the core of the division politics we're experiencing today, right? Massive manipulation. Manipulation at incredible scale, psychographic technologies and things like that. And it's designed, to provoke a visceral response, leveraging feelings versus facts. You hear claims like the economy feels stuck. How can the economy feel stuck, right? So it's the bad use of data is a really powerful tool for manipulation. And you see that with the Brexit bus, the climate denial data. And to give you an example of how an ill-conceived kind of mind can use data to come to wrong conclusions. Let's think, for example, take some data of childhood disease outbreaks in London over the last kind of couple of years, and overlay that with a distribution of population. So native kind of Londoners or British people and foreigners. And of course, there's a massive increase in foreigners in the last few years. And one can come to the flawed conclusion that it's the foreigners who bring diseases to the country, right? Ignoring completely the actual cause, which is anti-vaxxers, people refusing to vaccinate their kids. So that's a terrible kind of a horrific example of how data can be used to mislead. Inclusivity is the exact opposite of that. Inclusivity enables the exact opposite. And we can even use inclusivity to try and understand those people that are manipulated by these things, right? And try to really get in the process, see how they think, and try and innovate ourselves out of this mess, okay? And to do so, we need to get from data to knowledge. Data is in abundance. Knowledge is in scarcity right now. We're living at an era of extreme kind of accelerated change, of instant gratification, of distraction, where we outsource our knowledge to Google, to Siri, to Wikipedia, whatever. We rely on the ease of use of these tools, that everything is just a tap away, and I don't need to kind of internalize the knowledge. So I think it's incredibly important for us designers to find and facilitate ways for people to internalize knowledge. There's so much data, so much information out there. We can create and compose knowledge from that and deliver it in a multimodal sort of way at variable resolutions. Let me give a couple of quick examples of what I mean by kind of a variable data resolution, knowledge resolution. This is an example from that investment platform that I showed you before. And can I put a mouse here? Let's see. No. And it starts at the very top there. This shows actually the investment rounds of a company. Okay, how much investment they've raised and when. So you can show as little information as just one key metric on the top left, like how much they've raised in total. You can show next to that little row, you can show just the latest round that they've raised. Underneath that, you can show the number of rounds that they've raised and kind of visually represented with a bar chart. Or you can actually show that even more kind of larger resolution with all the details per round, or even go into each round separately and show the investors that were involved. So multi-modality, variable resolution is all about shrinking the content enough to fit all the kind of different mediums that you use to get that knowledge and that information, okay? And another example is a kind of high-fidelity prototype that we built for ourselves called Clipper, which was all about saving things to read later. And the biggest problem that we were trying to solve there, actually was a personal problem of mine, is that, how you always save things that you want to read and you put it like on Instapaper, you put them on bookmarks, you leave them on open tabs, even worse, and you never go back to them, never. You just end up with link graveyards or crashing browsers. So we thought, like, you know, why shouldn't there be an easy way of, like, if you're at the university multitasking and doing all sorts of things and coming across something you want to read, to save it somewhere and pick it up at home. You know, when you go home, we have the technology there, right? Get a notification that you have one article saved from that source. So we did exactly that. And to do that, we again relied heavily on the variable resolution. So regarding where you were, on what device, what context you were, you would see it completely differently. And of course, it worked in all different resolutions and all different devices with kind of embedding the branding of the source and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, there's a lot into it. I'm not going to go into detail. But one more thing, if you noticed even the article here, the title of the article, that's another great example of inclusive technology. This is a chatbot called Do Not Pay that helped overturn 160,000 tickets, parking tickets, for citizens. It's insane, isn't it? It's a chatbot lawyer. It builds the case for you and defends you. How incredible is that? So that's where we're headed now. You know, a citizen can get legal help from a chatbot. You know, blind people can listen and talk to the internet with Alexa, with Siri, that kind of stuff. And deaf people, you know, can see music. That's magic stuff. That's what's happening now. We're living in an era where we're experiencing a continuous kind of a shift, paradigm shift. And, you know, back like 15 years ago, we started with a web kind of revolution, then the social, then mobile, and now it's all about platforms and AI, accelerated change everywhere. And of course, that risks further creating further cultural gaps in society. And that's why inclusivity is so important, like incorporating and delivering solutions that actually benefit everybody. Skating on thin cultural ice, that's actually a really nice phrase. I was reading the other day an article talking about doomsday scenarios. It's like, you know, there's a strong sense, you know, lately that the world is about to end, and there's a lot of drama kind of going on about that. And I was reading an article about some kind of Silicon Valley super rich kind of entrepreneurs and fund managers, how they create bunkers and things like that for when society collapses. Because it's not that they believe that the world, you know, is going to end because of just climate change or kind of natural causes, but society is going to collapse, and that's going to create total anarchy. And again, if you think about it, it's not that impossible. It's not that crazy. So all these major shifts are creating completely new ways of delivering, completely new ways of working, new ways of collaborating. And to me, it's the era of the innovation networks, where it's an increasing trend that, you know, smart and very capable people tend to move away from the security of their paid job and start their own companies, okay? Either startups or work solo as freelancers and come together with other people that they've worked with, that they know that they're also very capable, and together kind of form super propositions together, chain propositions. So for example, you know, if you combine business transformation from a partner that we're working with called Heron, you combine the creation of the ideation and the value proposition of a product along with the experience and the strategy that we do at Codica with product development, that another partner of us called Sinus does, and go-to-market strategy that Julie and Mike do, then you have an end-to-end proposition done by different companies and different people, and putting all those kind of different, very capable teams, teams, on a case-by-case basis, can deliver immeasurably better results to clients. So you know, the process, as I said, that we do, it's heavily learning by doing. And yes, you can argue it's relentless empiricism, what we do. But if you combine that with insight and foresight, of the insight and foresight of very capable and very experienced people, then you get execution-driven and informed, powerful strategies. And if you add purpose to that, then that's world-changing stuff. You can do anything. You can really change the world there. And, you know, you can create infrastructure, you know, like create refugee aid services to help them navigate bureaucracy in the country they choose to settle. In Bangladesh, you can help create floating villages because they've been plagued by floods. You can help students spark their curiosity. You can connect them to the abundant sources of information that they can continue and research. And you can help patients, for example, you know, to get track of their conditions, and understand their conditions, follow on with their medications and their doctors. Stuff that really changes the world. So, to wrap it up, you know, design is the enabler, and it's about, you know, inclusion. It's not about walls, and it's about, you know, making a world that we're all part of, and where all the magic can happen. Okay, thank you. Any questions, or shall we head to the pub?
I think we can have time one question only, because I think we just over
Yeah,
time.
sorry.
Do you have any question? Can I ask a very quick one?
Yeah.
That you can answer maybe in maximum 1 minute. Yeah. All right, Julie, you want to come over? You talk about you talk about multidisciplinary design, data, information, inclusivity, diversity through your work, everything. It was great. Thank you for coming. It was absolutely amazing. Mike, thanks. I'm going to ask you a weird question. How do you know each other, and how that, if that kind of like introduction to like Con, to Julia, etc., how that helps you is helping you to create an environment to work together? Because you mentioned in the last couple of slides that there is like a whole journey from one company to another. We understand each other,
Yep.
and we come to a point where we have an overall idea of thinking, etc.
Yeah.
How that helps you? How that helps Codica, Exonera, you as people?
So, Julie, you want to answer first?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. You want to get the.
I think that's yeah, you can.
I've only got a minute apparently, so but I think it's because I did exactly what Con just said, and I decided I'd had enough of working for someone and I wanted to do my own thing and make things better, and I only wanted to work with people that I completely trust and I completely respect. Because, you know, I had enough of working with the wrong people as well. That shouldn't be on camera, but anyway, I'm going to say it. And that's what you learn through your career, you know. And that's it in a nutshell. You know, you can trust is the number one thing.
Exactly. So it's exactly that, basically. We met back in the days of the Brand Perfect. When we started working together on Brand Perfect, I was working at Fjord back in the day, and Julie Monotype was a client at Fjord. So that's basically how we met, and of course we liked each other, you know, and kept in touch, and we got in touch. We got in touch when Julie started Exonera, and I was telling her, you know, what we do and how we believe in partnerships and collaborations and things like that, and chain propositions, and kind of it all made sense. We said, you know, okay, let's try and work this out and see how we can work together. So, you know, it's all about trying to build bridges and create kind of mutually beneficial situations here. And there's so much space there's so much opportunity right now around us. There is so much changing right now, and we need different ways of doing things, and we need to cut lengthy processes short. We need to focus on delivering value, and we need to get away of the traditional kind of conventional stuck-up way of thinking.
Great.
Yep.
Anything to add, maybe? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
And having a good night. See you next week. I think that we have someone next week coming from V&A to talk to us, the digital design head, to talk about how to build a V&A's museum in our current era. So